Hey, baseball fans, welcome to the 40/40 Club, a baseball podcast by 40 plus baseball fans for all baseball fans. I'm your host, Bram. Sheldon is off today. He is, rumor has it, he is vaccinating softball players all over the GTA, but he will be back soon. In his stead, we have two awesome baseball fans. I would like to first introduce Charles, and we go back a long time. I've probably gone to more baseball games with him than anyone. Hi, Charles. Thanks for
Hi,
joining us.
Graham. Thanks for having me.
And and we also have another awesome baseball fan. He's smart. He's funny. He's good looking. Ladies and gentlemen, Theo.
Hey,
You're good
baseball
looking too,
fans.
Charles. Thank you for joining us. So the Jays, they lost 3 out of 4 to Kansas City, including one end of a doubleheader on
Oh,
Saturday.
I thought they split.
No, they lost 3 out of 4.
Was it
They
2-2?
lost on Thursday. I can't remember the
I
score.
thought they won that game.
They
Am I wrong?
no, they
Did
lost on Thursday. They
they
rained
lost.
out
Oh, right.
Friday.
They got slaughtered. That's right. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Well, they were losing 7-0, and then they made a game of it 7-5.
Right.
Yeah, but they didn't quite come back. Yeah. Today, Sunday, they had a,
Sal Perez
I
kicked
guess,
them in the
good
ass the
pitching
last
performance
2
from
minutes.
the starter. Who was the starter? Ross, not Ross. Robbie Ray, right?
Robbie Ray. Yeah.
Yeah, I get him and Stripling mixed up. Robbie Ray, he had sort of a good start. He somehow managed to go 5 innings without giving up any runs, despite 6 walks. But the
Yeah. He
Jays
loaded the
bat
bases
were stunk.
twice. He loaded the bases
They
twice, I
loaded the
think.
bases twice. I think Kansas City had like a million runners left on base. But it was TJ Zoik who gave up the game-winning home run to perennial All-Star catcher Sal Perez, who hit 2 home runs against the Jays in this series. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the Jays' first baseman now, he is finally, it seems, to be becoming the player that we all thought he would be. He hit 2 home runs in this series. He is hot. Randall Grichuk is cooling off. Rowdy Tellez is starting to heat up again after starting the season with an 0 for 12 or something. What are your thoughts on this series, guys? Let's start with Theo.
Thoughts on the series? Well, they need to. The funny stat that I found today was how good the Jays bullpen is. They have apparently the best bullpen in the league, like a 2.0 something ERA.
Wow.
Everybody else has got a higher ERA than the Jays bullpen. But the last couple of nights, the bullpen is what did them in.
Yeah.
Are you at all worried that the bullpen is going to get taxed too much too soon?
Yeah, of course. And then if you look at the way that the Jays construct their bullpen, it's always patchwork, right? It's always find the cheapest guys, and hopefully one of them will be lightning in a bottle.
Exactly. I think that the Jays bullpen woes can be directly traced to the starting rotation, which is pretty much Hyunjin Ryu, Steven Matz, and Pray for Rain. Charles, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, they, I mean, their bats were cold in Kansas City. They need to. I
Their
think
bats always go cold in Kansas
yeah,
City.
the weather has to warm up, and they need to get some bodies back.
Whether it's April or October, their bats always go cold in Kansas City.
But they need to get Hernandez back, and of course the big signing from Houston, the free agent.
The Spring Man.
The name is Springer. Yeah, I was going to say the name escapes me, but hopefully the offense will pick up. But I'm not too worried at this point.
I think we need a megaphone to wake up those bats, huh? Yeah, you got any good sound systems on you?
Who's our hitting coach?
Who is our hitting coach?
Exactly. Nobody knows.
Other than Bo's dad, who's kind of the
Pat Talbert just mentioned. Yeah,
Is he still? Is Bo's dad still with the Jays?
Yeah, he's still with the Jays, but
moonlights.
he's now a roving hitting instructor. He's not with the club full time like he was last year. Yeah. Pat Talbert just mentioned the hitting coach yesterday, and I'm blanking right now. But we know that sorry,
is he a former player?
I would assume so. We know that.
No, but I mean a name that we would know.
I think I think most Jays fans know the pitching coach more than the hitting coach.
Yeah, I was just about to say we all know Pete Walker. He's
Yeah,
considered
but
to be.
he's been there for a lot longer than he should be. That's why we know his name.
Yeah, well, and of course he's Buck Martinez, the Sportsnet broadcaster, keeps saying he's one of the best pitching coaches in the majors. That may be true, but you can only work with what you've been given.
That's also true.
And
Yeah.
the Jays could certainly use a starter or three.
Well,
But yeah,
I think they
right
can use at least two starters. I think they can use two starters at least.
for sure. As Sheldon and I talked in an earlier episode, though, nobody's trading this early in the season. I mean, teams want to see what they have. It takes at least, I think, a quarter of the season, a month and a half at least, to see what you got. I think as the season goes on, I have confidence that Ross
Tripling.
Atkins, the general manager,
Oh,
will pull off a trade if needed. But yeah, right now it's patchwork. And one thing though, that the schedule has 2 off days this week and next week, so it's going to allow them to basically go with 3 starters for the time being, with all those off days. And um, in that case, would you, if you were the manager, if you were Montoyo, if you were Atkins, would you take that as an opportunity to bring up an extra hitter off the bench, or would you want to keep, the Jays only have 3 bench hitters right now, defensive players, and so that's 12, so that's 14 pitchers on the staff right now. So would you stick at 14, or would you go to 13 and bring up another hitter, defensive player?
I think this team needs pitching. My answer is always going to be pitching with these guys. The other thing is I don't know if Charlie Montoyo knows how to pinch hit guys and bring guys into the game hitting wise. I could be
I've heard a lot of
exaggerating.
that.
I could
So,
be exaggerating, but I don't know what you guys think.
Theo, what's with the Dodger uniform? And I thought you were a big Jays fan. Ah, okay, right, okay,
Does that answer the question?
yes, okay.
Yeah.
That's actually a good segue, Bram, to go maybe to the one of the topics we're going to discuss.
Yeah, so on on Thursday of last week, it was Jackie Robinson Day. And by the way, you're watching the 40/40 Club podcast by 40 plus uh, fans, for all fans. So Thursday was Jackie Robinson Day. And Theo, I'd like to get, both your opinions, but Theo, I'd like to especially ask you, as a person of color and as a big baseball fan, what did Jackie Robinson mean to you?
Ever since I was a little kid, Jackie Robinson, even when I didn't really understand baseball, I knew who Jackie Robinson was. I knew what he meant. I knew how pivotal he was just in history. And, um, you know, growing up with whatever racist shit I had to deal with, um, Jackie Robinson and understanding his plight and everything was always kind of a motivator and kind of a light, like a something to strive for, something to have hope in. When I became a teacher, one of the first books that I read to the kids was a book called Teammates. I wish I had it here. It's a book called Teammates. So it talks about a time where Jackie and Pee Wee Reese um, go to Cincinnati, and how Jackie, I'm going to try to be brief here. Jackie gets abused everywhere he goes, but when he gets to Cincinnati, Cincinnati was especially brutal. But Pee Wee Reese is from Cincinnati, so he goes over to Jackie at first base and he just puts his arm around him, basically telling the crowd of race people shouting racist stuff. This guy's my teammate. This guy's my friend. Treat him properly. And it kind of hushed the crowd, and you didn't have to deal with much after that. But it's that kind of thing that needs to kind of show itself in today's society for that type of stuff to dissipate.
I remember that story.
Yeah,
I think they showed it in the movie, didn't
it's
they?
in the movie. Yeah, it's definitely in
Yeah,
the
with
movie.
Chad Boseman. That's where
Yeah.
I remember it from. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Theo. Any thoughts, Charles?
No, I mean it's good that they baseball has this. I mean, it's definitely well deserving to recognize Jackie Robinson he broke the color barrier, and for baseball, it's very good. I wish there could be more of that, in the game, that and in like society in general, that there'd be a lot more
For
tolerance.
sure. For sure. I just heard on Sports Center or Connected, I forget where yesterday or the day before, that the actual percentage of black baseball players has decreased from 25%, which it was in the 80s, to like 7 or 8% now. And that's
Yeah.
astounding. I had no idea. Did you guys know that?
Yeah, yeah. They've been talking about that for about 15 or 20 years, about how the population of black players has drastically gone down in the U.S. They say that it's due to the high cost of playing ball for kids, and how much cheaper it is to play other sports for kids.
I was gonna mention that. So, the most expensive of the major sports to play is probably hockey, because you have to buy a boatload of equipment,
Thousands of
and
dollars of
probably
equipment.
Football. Sorry.
Thousands of dollars of equipment just to play those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then football's probably up there, but baseball was always a sport where, like, we've all heard it's almost a cliche, the stories of dirt poor Latino ball players in the Caribbean, growing up with no money and playing, catching with their bare hands, playing in socks or bare feet, using a box as the strike zone, or a piece of cardboard. So that kind of is surprising to me a little. Do you think that a lot of the fans, especially of color, are going towards the NBA? Has the NBA had a resurgence? I've sort of been following the NBA since about the 80s, but that is obviously, I think, the major sport in North America with the highest percentage of black players. What is it, like 80%, something like that? 75?
Probably.
So do you think they're going there? Or are they going to football? I don't think they're going to hockey.
Yeah, I think they're going there, but I think there's more to it than just the cost as well. Because you got to think of
What do
it
you
this
think?
way, because the kids who would be playing baseball, you got to think that, well, it's going to be their fathers who introduced them to baseball. Well, if their fathers are not as interested in baseball, or their fathers have a reason to not be as interested in baseball, then maybe that's the reason. I would say that maybe part of the reason why you're seeing a dropping of interest from people of color is just what they would have to deal with to be a part of baseball.
The
Um,
racism.
being in I mean, if you're a person of color and you're the only person of color on your team, you're going to be dealing with some shit. I mean, I have a cousin who played hockey, brown guy in Brampton. He was oftentimes the best player on his team, and he would still have to deal with racist shit from his own teammates. So
That
if
really
that's what,
saddens me to
so
hear.
if that, so if that's what's happening on baseball teams, you can see why people of color are leaving the sport.
That does sadden me to hear that. Yeah. What do you think, Charles?
No, that's it. No, I have that's all my comments.
So, yeah, it's too bad. Baseball is a beautiful sport. We all know and love it. And it just saddens me that we still have racism in this day and age. I have to admit, Theo and Charles, that I grew up a little bit sheltered. I went to a Jewish private school up to grade 5. Most of my friends are Jewish. I don't think I've been. I think I'm lucky enough that I haven't been a direct recipient of that much racism. The odd slur here and there, but not a direct. Um, Nothing aimed specifically at me, nothing horrendous, but it saddens me to know that still goes on. And I've always thought, sports is kind of, I've always thought of sports as being, the domain where it doesn't matter what color you are, you're here to just watch the game, the beautiful game, you know, other sports too. But what do you think we can do to bring people of color, Latino, Black fans, and baseball players back into the game? Theo.
I don't know. Get rid of racism. I know that Major League Baseball has tried to throw a little bit of money at bringing young colored people of color back into the game. They're throwing some money at youth leagues in like poorer areas and stuff like that. They're trying to do it a little bit that way. That's really the only way to change the future. I mean, you can't change anything for the next couple of years, but for maybe the next generation, you might have a shot with if you're dedicated and you really want it. It's really a matter of if you really want it and how badly you actually want it, and what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're willing to throw money at in order to make it happen.
Good point. Charles, anything to add on that?
Oh.
Theo, you mentioned a minute ago that it's young men, boys are sort of, they get into the game influenced by their fathers. So I was sort of unique in that I'm a pioneer in my family when it comes to sports and baseball. Nobody else in my family is really into it. I've gone to games with various members of my family once or twice, but so yeah, I didn't really get into baseball as a fan until like 12 or 13. Which of course was in the Jays when the Jays started winning in the mid 80s. But excuse me. And of course, I had all the talent of being a sports broadcaster, not not an athlete. But I think that is a good point. That it's up to the fathers what they are interested in. Which I think explains why you see some legacy players in all the sports. The Boones in baseball, of course, you have 3 generations of players. So you're watching the 40/40 baseball podcast by 40-something baseball fans for all baseball fans. So I'd like to move on to another issue, Charles. So earlier in an earlier episode, Sheldon and I talked about how Rogers, the owner of the Blue Jays and the Rogers Center and Sportsnet, which carries all the Jays games, has canceled for the first time radio broadcasts, separately produced radio broadcasts for the Blue Jays. They are the only team in the majors to do this. They are probably the only major league team in a century to not have a separately produced radio broadcast. I mean, baseball is arguably, I would say, the sport out of all the major sports that is suited best for radio. And of course, what they've been doing on Sportsnet Radio is simulcasting the audio portion of the TV broadcast with Dan, Buck, and Pat. Charles, what's your take on that?
Well, I don't know if this has been mentioned like on the broadcast or in the radio stations, but I think this might be just a one-off situation. Seeing as how we have like with COVID going on, obviously Rogers is trying to save money wherever they can. Obviously, everybody's bottom line is hurting, but I think that if things were to return back to normal later, well, say next season, or maybe possibly this season, maybe in August, September, I think they'll have a change of heart. That's where I'm leaning towards. I can't believe this is going to be the long-term solution. Maybe I'm 100% wrong, but I think this is a one-off situation, and next year it's going to go back. It's going to go back to having a separate broadcast for the radio, because you're right. You can't paint the same kind of picture listening to the broadcasters that are doing the TV side of it.
I really hope so. Yeah. Theo, any comments on that?
Yeah, I agree with Charles. I think it's a one-off thing. I think it's just this season because of COVID. So by eliminating one set of half of your broadcast team, you expose less people. It costs you less money. It's less broadcasting that you have to do. The other thing is they also have Dan Shulman. So Dan Shulman is a rare creature who always does the playoff radio broadcasts. He did a lot of Sunday night baseball broadcasts. Mm-hmm. He's a huge asset that they can,
one of the best in the game,
that they probably feel that they can utilize in this rare situation. And then you also have Buck, who's pretty good. They always bring him in to do playoff games in this down
very
in the
versatile.
States. Yeah.
Back and forth between play-by-play and color commentary. Nothing, as Sheldon and I said in that previous episode, no disrespect to Buck and Dan and Pat, but you have Ben Wagner, who is being paid a full salary essentially to be Hazel May, a sidelines reporter.
And he's still there. They didn't fire him, which I think kind of gives you a bit of a hint. Yeah, which
Sorry?
I think kind of gives you a hint that he's not going to be going
I
anywhere.
hope so, but they did let go Mike Wellner, who I think did an amazing job for years as a host and then play-by-play guy.
Well, again,
He's now a columnist.
that's probably like a cost-cutting move. They were probably knowing that they were going to do the simulcast this season, so they wanted to cut his salary, obviously, to save money.
Yeah, if they do go back to a separately produced broadcast on radio this year, I don't know what they'll do for Ben Wagner's partner, but I guess there's any number of broadcasters at the Fan 590 Sportsnet Radio who could do that, or they could bring Joe Siddall back into the booth. They could bring Kevin Barker, who does a lot of sort of studio commentary, and he appears on a lot of the shows on Sportsnet Radio. I guess they could do that. I really hope you're right. I hope it's at some point in the season that they bring him back. That they bring radio broadcasts back. I'd like to go back to the Kansas City series that just concluded again. How about that Steven Matz? Not just Kansas City. He's been like amazing. What a find. Had you guys heard of this guy?
Mm-hmm.
He's been very reliable. It's great to see.
About 4 or 5 years ago, when he was with the Mets, he was touted as being a really good player to watch. And I don't know what happened over those 4 or 5 years, injuries, whatever. But I guess he's back to being someone to watch. I mean, he was supposed to be good 4 or 5 years ago, and then injuries happen, and then it's what usually happens after that is injuries happen and the guy is a mere shell of what he's supposed to be. But him coming back from his injury, I guess it was last year. I think they said he was 0-5 last year. Didn't have a single win, didn't pitch very well. And that's probably why we were able to buy him on the cheap, right? And the Jays taking chances and trying to get guys on the
They
cheap.
traded 3 pitchers for him to the Mets. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, did they? Were there anybody of note?
Yeah, there was one of note. He had a hyphenated last name, and I'm blanking on it right now. Chris Reed Foley, something
Foley.
like that.
That's right. Right. He was supposed to be good too, and then the Jays are probably giving up on him, which is why they were okay with seeing him out the door.
Yeah.
Which means in about 2 or 3 years he's really gonna light up the league good in the
Syndergaard could be the next Syndergaard
in the National League.
But you got to give up something to get something, and they gave 2 other pitching prospects too, who I believe were in the low minors. Nobody had heard of them, so I think I think we came out on top on this one, at least for now. And I had looked at his stats this morning, and he did not have a great 2020 or 2019. I think 2020 was worse, but of course abbreviated COVID. And I think he had injuries both seasons. But if he can stay healthy, that's the big theme this year, and with not just with the Jays but throughout Major League Baseball, is if he can stay healthy, And it's just 3 starts so far, but do we?
If he can keep it up, he'll be a nice number 2.
For sure, I think he is already.
Then we'll have 2 number 2s.
Do we dare say the word all-star for those 2 guys, Hyun-Jin Ryu and Steven Matz, or did I just jinx it?
You probably jinxed it, but I think we'll probably get a bat in there. If Vladdy keeps this up, then you might see Vladdy there too.
I'm stoked about this Blue Jays team, this offense. It's just a matter of getting them all together,
waking them all up.
Yeah, I mean, I hope the rest of the team. Teoscar Hernandez, I think is dealing with COVID, so I hope word was, I think today, that he'll be back as soon as he's able, as soon as he's eligible to come off the IL.
That'd be good.
But sometimes when you're getting over COVID, you still have lingering symptoms. So you never know. It's different with everybody. So I hope they aren't too bad with him, and I hope the rest of the team is inoculated by now.
Well, down in Florida, I don't know what's the inoculation rate down there.
I don't know, but I heard the other day that the U.S. has inoculated over 100 million people. They're doing like a few million each day, and they're going at a record pace. They were leading the world in new cases and deaths, and now they're leading in pace and number of vaccinations. Of course, we're a little behind, more than a little behind, thanks to, in my opinion,
Yeah.
the failure of some of our political leaders. But maybe by 2023, the world will be safe again. I'm hoping later this season, but it may not be till later this year.
Honestly, I think it's all about. This is off topic from baseball, but I think it's all about money. I'm sure Biden threw all kinds of money at the different um, drug companies so that they can make sure that they get the vaccinations. Canada, I don't know what Trudeau did. I don't know if he threw enough money at them, or maybe he just didn't make the best offer.
I think both Trudeau and our Premier Doug Ford kind of what's the word, bit the pooch, screwed the pooch, something like that. I think they both have failed. But as you said, that's a little bit off topic.
Yeah.
So we basically covered the topics we wanted to get to. Any other comments on the Jays or the Royals or the upcoming series against Boston? It's a mini 2-game series on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Bram, I also wanted to discuss Joe Panik's at bat.
Oh yes, I'm sorry, Charles. Go ahead. Yes, yesterday's game, right? Saturday.
Yeah, the second game, the Jays, since it was
the
a
doubleheader
game,
one they won.
When it was 2-2, Jays had a runner, Alejandro Kirk. He got safe on that throwing error. Then Panik came up. The count was 3-0.
He got cut, out.
And the third pitch was like below the strike zone. If you're watching the game, you could see it clearly on the screen. The fourth pitch comes out in the same area,
and they called it a strike.
Called it a strike.
Oh, and he thought it was a ball and a walk, and he ran to second. Oh,
to make it the count 3-1, and then I think the next
I missed that play.
He flew out. Now, if it's ball four, which it should have been, then the Jays first and second, 1 out. Instead of Panik flying out, giving the second out and the runner in first, it changed the whole complexion of that inning. The Jays possibly may have gone on to score like a run in the top of the 7th, would have put pressure on Kansas City, possibly, not getting anything. But of course, the guy hit for Kansas City, catcher Perez hit a home run. But I think what baseball should institute is maybe, just how you're allowed to challenge like close play. Maybe you should be think about allowing to make one challenge in a game to question an umpire's pitch. I don't know how it would work.
Oh, that's opening up a can of worms. Because if the computer can get one strike right or one ball right, why can't it get all 250?
I know. Well, there's that debate. Obviously, there's the debate. When are they going to go to the automated computers calling it? And who knows? Down the road, maybe not for several years. It won't happen. But
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that in the next 5 years.
But I was really ticked off at that because we've seen that many times in games. Like a complexion of an inning can just change because of the way the umpire calls it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I already think
that tends to happen to the Jays in Kansas City.
Yes, as we know. Yes.
Just ask Ben Revere.
I don't like that idea. Like I've considered it, and I would be willing to try it out. But I think, I'm on the side of there's a human element to the game, and I think if you take it away, like it's too radical a change. And there's been enough radical changes last year and this year with the 7-inning doubleheaders, which in my opinion is not major league. With putting runner on second base in extra innings, that's not major league either. That's like little league stuff. Too many radical changes when in a game that's been around for 150 years, you had only really 2 or 3 major changes: the DH, the save, and I can't remember what the third one would be. But that's one reason I think we all like this game, is because it's mostly been the same game, with those few major exceptions for so long. But I'd be willing to try it. Maybe that they should try that in in the Atlantic League. They're trying out some new things, like moving the pitching mound back a foot, which I don't like. Maybe they should try robot umpires in one of the in that league or one of the unaffiliated leagues next year. But yeah, I don't think it's baseball.
I think it already exists in a couple of leagues, or at least they've tried it, maybe experimented. But I don't think that it was like a permanent part of a league's.
Not for a full season.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they tried it in spring training or in the minor leagues, in an unaffiliated league, as I said, maybe, but not, yeah, not for a whole season. I guess we'd have to see a study on it to see, how it compares somehow.
I think part of what would make that difficult, at least in the early going, is the technology may not be possible in every stadium. Like because you would need basically need it to be like the in tennis, how they have like their replay system. What's the system called in tennis? Bram, you're a tennis guy.
I don't know what it's called, but I think they do have it in baseball, because sometimes you see a pitch and then you see it 360 degrees. The computer graphics go around and you can see it from all ends.
That's not in every stadium, though, right?
No, I
The
guess it
stadium has
depends
to
on,
be stadium has to be set up for it.
does it? I
Yeah.
figured it was just
It would involve putting, if you remember the Super Bowl from a number of years ago, they had to put cameras around the entire stadium, like
yeah.
one every like 10 feet or something, and that's how they're able to
Oh,
do
really?
that. Yeah, that's how they're able to do that
I didn't
computer
know it was
generated
that
stuff.
close, but I figured that, like, with all the cameras, there's software that makes a composite in
Yeah,
3D, just like
yeah,
Google Maps does, for example.
yeah,
That sort of technology.
yeah.
I don't think it's too difficult. I mean, they set up the technology to have the instant replay, in which isn't so instant, in excuse me, in in all the Major League Baseball parks. Anyway, we're just about out of time. Before we go, we started a new tradition, a new thing at the end of the podcast in episode 3. Our last episode is, we all will. We're all baseball fans. We all have collected memorabilia over the years. I'd like each of us to show an item, baseball memorabilia, and to basically tell us where and when you got it and its significance to you. Let's start with Charles. What do you got for us today?
At the Josh Donaldson bobblehead here. This was, I had to stand in line for about like an hour, and it was so crowded that day. There were so many people in line. This is his MVP bobblehead,
Nice.
and I
Nice.
was very fortunate to get it. I guess obviously it was the following year after he got his bobblehead.
2016. Yeah.
2016.
Yeah, that was I did not arrive in time for that game, but I often don't arrive in time for the
For the
giveaways. Theo,
giveaway.
what do you got for us?
So I was digging through some autograph stuff and I totally didn't expect to find um, what I'm about to show. So the where I got it was in I guess in about 20 I don't maybe 2013. They did a Blue Jays, was it 20th anniversary or whatever of the back to back, where they brought in all of, like the Jays to come back and sign stuff. So at that, so I found some stuff sort of lying in a box that I didn't even remember that I got. I found John Olerud signed 8x10 that I got,
Oh,
Very,
nice.
very nice.
and I
Great,
found a
great player.
Todd Stottlemyre 8x10 that he signed
Oh,
for me,
awesome. Yeah.
and the pièce de résistance. I got a Roberto Alomar.
Oh, awesome. That's
So
signed.
I was, yeah,
That's
they're all
awesome.
signed. They're all signed.
I wonder how much those are worth. And I wonder how much
Mm,
your bobblehead is worth, Charles.
I don't know.
So I have, well, I'm not sure if it's quacked up to if it's all it's quacked up to be, but I have a rubber ducky Carlos Delgado.
Oh, I got one of those. I got
You have
one of
one of
those.
those? Yeah,
Yeah.
we were probably at the game together.
I think I might have two of those.
So it's still in the netting, but you can see his number
right.
on the back, which is the top. He has a tail like swans or ducks, and he's carrying the bat. And of
So,
course, it's
so,
still in the original packaging.
so I guess that means we can assume you haven't taken it into the bathtub with you.
I haven't taken a bath in years, Theo. I'm filthy.
Okay.
I like showers. Anyway, that's about it. We are out of time. I'd like to thank our special guest panelists, Charles and Theo. Thank you for joining us. I hope
Thanks
you'll
for
be
having
back
me,
on
Graham.
future podcasts. You have been watching the 40/40 Club, which is a podcast by 40 plus baseball fans on baseball and the Blue Jays for all baseball fans. Thank you very much for tuning in, and stay tuned for our next episode.